Let me tell you where I'm from, at least where I spent 10 formative years of my young life. Lodi, Ohio, a small hamlet, even smaller then, less than 2,000 people, in the southwest corner of Medina County, so within an hour's drive of Akron and Cleveland, and within their radio, TV, newspaper orbit. Um, this was the mid 20th century, and Lodi was there was the old farm community that had lived in the area for generations because it had been settled as early as 1811. Um, but many after World War II were, it served as a beachhead for invaders, some people would have you believe. Others, we'll just call them immigrants from Appalachia, specifically Clay County, where a lot of the coal towns started closing just due to the economy. And the families of miners headed north to join us Yankees. When I was 8, we lived on a street called Baker Avenue, and 3 houses down from us, there was a boy named David that was probably 5 or 6 years older than me. He was a quadriplegic. He was barely a teen when he had crashed his Schwinn bicycle speeding down Elyria Street, which was Lodi's highest hill, or steepest hill. Ironically, the accident occurred right in front of Lodi Hospital, which turned out to be his next stop. A few years later, I delivered the morning plain dealer to guests at that very same hospital. David and a friend had been fishing that day, perhaps at some farm pond on the road to Chatham, or maybe it was a fishing hole in the branch of the Black River that flowed through Richmond Farms. As he descended the bricks of State Route 76, his pole engaged in the spokes of the front wheel of his bike, and the poor boy catapulted hard ahead of his ride onto the pavement above Perkins Jewelry by the Iron Bridge. You remember when you went fishing? Did you ride your bike? Where did you fish? Did you fish in a lake, or a pond, or a river, or a stream? Did you cast flies repeatedly, whipping the surface of a cascading brook for trout? Or perhaps you surf fished for whiting or Atlantic croaker, or on a Gulf Stream excursion for marlin. David was an only child. His parents married well into their 30s and were pleased to be blessed with a son. The father owned a prosperous manufacturing plant common in small towns throughout the industrial north, generally suppliers to the auto assembly plants in Cleveland. They had the means to care for their boys at home, and as they traveled with him frequently, they installed a pneumatic lift in their driveway so as to slide his gurney into their Oldsmobile station wagon with ease. The path of the bank of Black River started at the barbed wire fence by the gravel township road. We waited until the bull was out of sight before crossing the pasture, dodging the cow pies wider than a skillet. Then, crawling under another fence, continuing the path through the blackberry thicket for a few yards to the sandbar by the stream. Our forward hike startled the bullfrogs that dived in sequence into the puddles ahead of our steps. We had packed sandwiches, a bamboo pole, extra line and hooks, a scaling knife, and a tobacco can for bait, having filled it before dawn with night crawlers fused together in a mucousy bond of worm lust. David's parents encouraged neighbor kids to visit. He spent his days in a parlor off the living room, lying on his gurney next to a large aquarium, tropical fish in bright, clear water. Nothing like the tepid creek he'd fished where thirsty dairy cattle often waited. Often we'd go visit as they returned from a Sunday drive to see how he got to descend to the driveway on the lift from the vehicle. He smiled a lot. He must have liked us. Bluegills are a species of sunfish common in these waters. The stream is slow, shaded by willows and sycamore trees, and our catch of panfish would be on display en route home, tethered to our handlebars as trophies awaiting the frying oil. Remember Saturdays in the fall, squirrel season? A Ford pickup passes with one or many severed tails bannering from the radio antennas, or bucks in bondage on the front grille of Jeeps driving back from deer hunts. What did David catch that day, hours before permanent paralysis? Bass was the holy grail, but carp and suckers often took the bait. Catfish were too bony to keep. We always found turtles, box turtles to taunt, but we kept a respectful distance from the snappers and snakes. I don't know if David liked berries. Wild strawberries had ripened when he went fishing, smaller than the cultivated berries, but sweeter like no other fruit. We harvested berries all summer, raspberries, blackberries, elderberries by the drainage canal. Our bikes balanced pine peck baskets filled to the top, one on each handlebar, as we hurried home, passed by tractor trailers hauling down Route 42. Ricky, leading our convoy in front of me, skidded onto the gravel shoulder on the highway, smashing his fruit into blood-like puddles on the side of the road. Once arrived at the house, we transfer our catch into pint and quart boxes and sell door to door to neighborhood pie bakers, 50 cents apiece. I wonder which ones his mom spoon-fed to David. During football season, we gathered apples from the orchard behind our house. Several heritage varieties, but all disappeared now. There was a cider press in Medina that squeezed the bushels we picked into glass gallon jugs, charging only by keeping a percentage of the yield for their use. Just as our berry sales, we marketed the fermenting apple juice, house to house, 75 cents per jug, keeping some to drink before it turned to vinegar. I can't recall when David ceased his smile, could no longer see his betas and anglefish that glowed in the dark. But it was after I stopped delivering newspapers to his address. The Beacon Journal cost 7 cents then, with the carrier getting 2 cents from the price. I saved enough to buy a fiberglass rod with a cork handle and a lightweight cast of aluminum reel that I aimed straight in front of my handlebars, above the front wheel, when I raced down Elyria Street with the bass hanging in the wind.